Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for your favorite Sunday evening show, the Bama Standard Post Game Show. And man, it could not have come at a better time. Before we get things rolling, I'm your host, Justin Riley. This is the man that makes it all happen, the living legend, the illustrious Coach Smook. As always, we are brought to you by Workspace Solutions and Oakmont Financial Partners. Go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button. Jump in the live chat. Let us know how you feel. Bama Nation, we got a lot to talk about, so I fully expect this chat to be jumping. If you're watching the replay, let us know in the comments section. Coach, it's the
Roll
off
Tide, man.
season, but man, roll tide. Yeah, first of all, roll tide, everybody in the chat.
Woo.
It's the off season, but listen, it has not been a quiet one. We finally have a full staff laid out, and we're going to talk about it. This start
Yes.
out, first and foremost, Kevin Steele has reclaimed
Mm.
his position of defensive coordinator for the University of Alabama. For those Tide fans not familiar with him, he was originally here in 2007 as defensive coordinator to begin the Saban era. Then he returned back in the 2013 and 2014 as an inside linebackers coach, then departed and was at Auburn until 2020. But he has come home for to serve us and to
Right.
kind of bring back that nasty, that intensity, the aggressive nature that has been absent. And we know that that was not something that was synonymous with the Pete Golding era. We're going to get into all of it, but Coach Smook, knee-jerk reaction, how you feeling? Is this something that you felt was a knock out of the park, or is this kind of a base hit? How do you grade it?
I give it a I give it a solid double. I give it a solid double because you didn't go and get the best um necessarily as the defensive coordinator, but you didn't get the worst either cuz you got to understand, man, Kevin Steele, he has years as a defensive coordinator, play calling,
Mm,
working with different skill sets, different schemes, different styles of, under different head coaches with different mindsets. Especially at Auburn where, you had offensive minded head coaches running that program, and Kevin Steele was a steady piece in those groups where they were competitive, especially those when they had talented defensive fronts and your front seven, like the talent we've had at Alabama for the past 4 or 5 years. If I feel like if Kevin still had that at Auburn, too deep, like we have had the luxury of having over the past few years, um, people his name would be a lot bigger, and it wouldn't be because he's losing to Nick Saban in Iron Bowls or things like that. It would be because he has the talent now, and so we might see a surprise. This might be a surprising thing. I know a lot of people they just associate him because he was with Auburn, but he was with Alabama first, and Auburn went and got him for a reason. They knew he had been under Saban. They knew that a lot of his core values were in line with what Saban do as far as defensive structure and
mm.
the type of mindset you want your defense to have. So, and we seen Auburn years when they had it together. It looked like versions of Alabama defenses, and anytime they gave us a game was years when their defense was very productive. And even when he was at Clemson between '09 and 2011, those I think was it '09? Oh nine two, I can't remember, but I know one year they was like top 10, top 8, something like that, statistically in all major categories of the defense. So um it's I feel like it's a good hire, especially with the defensive coordinator. We really need that type of
Mhm.
aggressive attitude to be restored back to Alabama defense.
Yeah, without question. And I've said before, Alabama right now was at a crossroads. We could either drive the ship towards an iceberg or drive it back to the charted waters that we're accustomed to. And we couldn't afford to make a mistake here, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And this is not somebody that we needed to come in and be a project hire, a guy that had a lot of potential. We need somebody, like you said, who's seasoned, who's had some years, who knows what it takes. More importantly, knows what Coach Saban wants. And Coach Saban, all he has to do is hand the keys over to him and let him drive the car.
Right.
Now, And now, which frees him up essentially to be the CEO. We've said this over and over again, and he didn't have to really stand over him. Now, is this the sexy hire that we were all anticipating? I'll be honest with you, and you've already been honest. No, this is not the sexy hire, but it's not a bad hire. The
Right.
truth is, Coach Saban wanted Jeremy Pruitt as his guy the entire time. But the problem is the NCAA has been looming, and not knowing what type of severity that Coach Pruitt would be facing, Coach Saban was forced to make a decision here.
Right.
So don't look at it as a loss. Look at it also, it may just be a stopgap, people. And what I mean by that is he may be here for a temporary season until we're able to wait out whatever the NCAA may hand down to Jeremy Pruitt. It could be severe. It could be something as simple as, okay, you can't recruit for a year, or it could be nothing at all. But the thing is, we can't waste any more time.
Right. We have to establish something. We have to start implementing things. Spring ball is going to be very important for this year, and it's February. You don't want to go into the fourth quarter program, without your staff. And we know that's important. That's where the season starts. Everybody knows that pre-season, pre-spring ball conditioning is probably the most important time. That's where you see guys' dedication level, and you begin to start establishing just good habits, good work ethic. You start setting a competitive tone, and you need your staff to start, to be able to implement that, project the picture, and make sure guys are staying in alignment with that, and also starting to give guys who are stepping up as leaders, give them that confidence and that support as a coaching staff to those players, because it makes a difference on the mental side. And when you talk about team continuity and guys, being resilient and understanding and trusting in the staff, that's one thing that I feel like we lacked at Alabama the last 2 or 3 years, man. A lack of trust from the players and our staff, especially at the coordinator position. So, and also, like you said, man, that's a great point you made with him being a possible, just a stop hire, because
Yeah,
if you think about it, Jeremy Pruitt specializes in the secondary,
right.
with Saban. And we know that same thing with Kirby Smart. When Kirby Smart was here as defensive coordinator with Coach Saban. So you get Jeremy Pruitt here. If he doesn't have to be an analyst, let him be a positions coach, let him hold the safeties down, let Robinson get corners, and work it like that. T-Rob. Let T-Rob just specifically work with corners. Because that's where our issue, our probably our weakest point has been. We haven't had a stacked group in the secondary where guys are performing consistently all the way across the board in a long time. And I feel like this could be something that could set Jeremy Pruitt up to be able to come in and work with the safeties.
Right.
And then if there's no sanctions, if Pruitt gets named defensive coordinator, you still allow him to be safeties, and you put Kevin Steele specialized as the inside linebacker coach, and we've seen the type of product he's able to produce at inside linebacker every stop he's made at each program he's been a part of. You go back every year, I guarantee you could think back between let's say 2018 on back to even when he was here at Alabama. You talked about somebody earlier, Justin, before the show, Darren Mustin. I
Yes.
go and I look at the stats. The year that Kevin Steele was defensive coordinator, the guy had a solid season before injury, like you said, was having a solid season. Nobody knew him before that year. So it's got
Yeah.
to be something.
Oh, I apologize. Didn't mean to
Okay.
interrupt there. But yeah, people seem to give him this bad label because of 2007's outcome. Folks, you got to remember that was Saban's first year. He didn't really have a whole lot to work with. And given the talent he had, two examples. One, Coach Smook just named Darren Mustin, a guy that came virtually out of nowhere and became a solid rock star until injury started tugging at him. And then he took a wide receiver and Ezekiel Knight turned him into an inside linebacker. The guy was balling out until injury unfortunately took him. But the defense was performing at a high level that year until we lost to LSU in that epic showdown. And then guys checked out. It was a different team, different mindset then. Those guys left after that year, and the rest is history, of course. But yeah, You bring up a good point. People understand this. Kevin Steele, if he comes as he comes back, he spends one more year in the state of Alabama. He's vested. That means he can retire, and more than likely, it may be after a year. And what we're
Right.
looking at right now is the strong possibility of Jeremy Pruitt coming in and being a defensive analyst. And the only reason he would agree to do that is because of his relationship with Kevin Steele. Had it been
Right.
anybody else, he wouldn't be coming in.
You got to remember these
It's
guys
not his
was
mess
on
to clean
staff.
up.
Yeah.
But in terms of development, you mentioned the aggressive nature of a Kevin Steele led defense. I'm looking at the inside linebackers we have right now. That whole linebacker room, Deontay Lawson, Kendrick Blackshire, two guys right now under his wing are going to unleash a lot of nasty that, quite frankly, was being handcuffed during the golden years.
Man, and Justin, you got a guy like Justin Jefferson coming in. That guy, go look at the film, man. He's a headhunter. You got guys like, man, and I seen a comment in the chat about Austin Armstrong. If this guy can develop edge rushers to and expand our edge rushers skill sets to be known as have the ability to be equally effective in pass coverage and understanding, being able to key on things, just recognition, I think is what our edge rushers have lacked. Outside of, the greats like Will Anderson, to name one recently, Terrell Lewis to name another, who was before Lewis. I mean, you could name one from every year. You can name somebody from every year, but under this golden era, this staff, and I really feel like this could be an opportunity for guys to specialize and focus on some things with an experienced coordinator. Kevin Steele is not a slack hire. And I also think this helps with the Tommy Rees hire. It makes sense with the Tommy Rees hire. You want to get a guy that's and we've been saying it, Justin. You want to go and get a younger guy that can relate to these younger guys, that has a good idea, some good foundational concepts on old school ball, but knows how to integrate new school play calling styles and concepts. So I think that's where Tommy Rees kind of gives me some optimism and makes me feel a little bit more positive about his hire. And then also just the simple fact, like I said, the Kevin Steele hire makes me even more confident because now, we have a little bit of time for those growing pains to happen. But
Yeah.
I feel like with Tommy Rees plays calling style, that's what Saban wants. You go look at what Notre Dame worked with. How many tight ends have Notre Dame put in the league? Since 2018, 2019. So
We'll get to him, but I want to kind of wrap up here on Kevin Steele. But Jim McEwen makes a very good point here. No more sit back and wait. We're getting after people. And that's one of the biggest things that, number one, jumps off the page to me is that we're not basing what we do off of somebody else. And God, I'm so glad. It's a breath of fresh air. We get back to playing Bama ball. You're going to have a sound defense, a disciplined defense. We're not going to be making these crazy penalties. Kevin Steele is going to play to the strengths of his defense, his personnel. He's not going to have people out of position, like you said, looking around. And we're also going to do something that we weren't able to do during the golden era. That's a term called adjustments.
right.
I know it's a foreign concept to a lot of us right now because we've forgotten what it means.
We've forgotten it. It's been years. It's been years.
But he's going to put them in the best places to make things happen. I think that we made a good hire right here. And like I said, folks, calm down. It may not be the be all end all. This could just be Coach Saban working his magic and orchestrating things the way he wants them to where eventually Jeremy Pruitt does take over. And I'd like to think that, at this point in Kevin Steele's career, he wouldn't mind handing the keys over to Jeremy Pruitt in a relatively short amount of time.
Right. And honestly, man, depending on how many years you're sitting here talking about keeping, how many more years we're giving Saban, a solid 4 or 5 years. Before you know it, Jeremy Pruitt and Steele, I think Steele is going to be here at least 3 years, 2 to 3 years. I give him a solid 2. He'll be here this year for sure. As a defensive coordinator. And I think the handover year next year, if it doesn't happen sometime this year, the handover year he'll stay, and then he'll possibly, if we don't go younger as far as position coaches and everything, we're not going through a transition. I think that's the third year of Pruitt being a coordinator will be Saban's transition year out. That'll be the year I believe Saban, he'll be 74, 75 around that time. I think that's when we'll start to see him, making that transition. And why not, hand it over to the guy that's in house, or we don't know who could be open at that time. But that would definitely be like the fairy tale move for this. And who knows, Kevin Steele might still be there as a position coach, just living a good life, being able to recruit at the best university, college, the best football program in the nation, sitting under the greatest college football coach of all time, just stacking that paper, stacking the stats, building that, continue to build that resume, because like I said, Kevin Steele's resume is a solid one.
It is. And any player that I've talked to that served under Kevin Steele, while he has been at Alabama, has nothing but great things to say about him. He can relate to them. He forms great relationships with them and endures. His players loved him, and he obviously loves them. So we have a lot of positives here. Now we can transition to the offensive side of the ball. Coach, I got to admit, this was not what any of us were thinking. It came out of left field. Again, we had the carrot dangled over us of names like Garrett Riley, Joe Brady,
right,
Jeff Lebby, and some others as well, Brian Johnson. So we're expecting something along those lines, right? Now, what we got? And I feel like that's one of the main reasons why we're kind of at a loss for words, because this isn't near what we're I guess we're promised. Is that the right word? But go ahead.
I mean, and you're absolutely correct, bro. I'm 1,000% there with you with the feeling of the Tommy Rees hire. But when you look at the schematics, when you look past the name, the glitz, the glamour, and you look at what's always been Saban's go-to when you're talking about successful, dominant Alabama teams. We've won national championships with this new style of football, but they weren't necessarily dominant during like the early years when 2009, 2011, 2012, 2015, like those years, even 2016, even though we didn't win it, like those defenses, man, and that style of offense where we was able to rely on Derrick Henry,
Right.
TJ Yeldon, Mark Ingram, guys, when we was able to show that we were really 3 deep in the backfield, when we were handing the ball off 30 plus times a game, putting the ball in the air 20 times with a pass efficient, completion percentage always 70% or better. I remember it was a stat during the LSU rematch year. They were talking about who was it? Was it McElroy? Was it quarterback then or McCarron? Their completion percentage off the play action pass because of the success on the run game was the highest since they started taking the stat in history of college football. And it's small things like that I think Saban is starting to remember that allowed their team to be successful. And then you already have conditioned your program to be in the mindset of adjusting to the tempo, the spread. So I feel like it's going to be a great integration with Tommy Rees's young mindset. He's a young mind. He's closer to understanding the mindset of these new quarterbacks, and him having control of a guy like Jalen Milroe. You see what he did with the Ian Book. You get what I'm saying? Like that guy, they had Ian Book in Heisman talks. And you look at Ian Book and you look at Ian Book after Notre Dame and you're like, him? Really? And but you gotta think he made play calls to the strengths. He used personnel to the strengths. And we got guys like Robbie Oops, you got guys like Amari Black, you got CJ Dupree that just got here. You got the other guy, junior JUCO tight end transfer from last year. Like you got tight ends that you can use and actually get involved in this offense. And then we don't even have to talk about the running back room to pair with the athletic quarterback like Jalen Milroe, or even if Ty Simpson ends up being the guy, a system quarterback in Ty Simpson, we're set up to be pretty tight. And the offensive line with some experience. I think that's probably going to be our question mark area starting off the year, but I think we figure out soon with the guy like Tommy Rees, because he's going to put those guys in the trenches and allow them to do what they do best, and that's lay on people, push people, not stepping back all the time, trying to embrace, push somebody around. That's what O-line is supposed to do.
Right. You're going to have a bunch of alpha males dictating the flow of the game, led by Seth McLaughlin and then Tyler Booker. The offensive line, I feel like, is going to be one of our strongest units coming into next year. And I look at this offense, and I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that Nick Saban looks over to Georgia. Georgia fans, don't get crazy about what I'm about to say. I think he's seeing the success of a Todd Monken offense running the similar scheme that we did years ago, and he was finding success even in this new age of offense. Georgia this past season finished top 5 in the nation offensively. So Coach Saban's wanting to bring that back. And Tommy Rees allows us to do that. The heavy personnel. We finally get to utilize running backs, which is something that Bill O'Brien absolutely refused to do. I'm looking at our stable, and they're greatly, greatly underused. And the guys who are coming in, Justice Haynes, I don't want to go back in that direction. I want us to go back to that aggressive style where people fear us. We dictate the flow of the game. With Tommy Rees, we can do that, but he's also going to incorporate some new age concepts.
Right.
This isn't just going to be going back to 3 yards in a cloud of dust. He's going to mix things up. If you want a true picture, kind of look at what Georgia did this past year, especially with Brock Bowers. It's the same kind of thing. And I smile when I see guys like Amari Black, very athletic tight end, a tight end that could easily be another O.J. Howard or Irv Smith. And I also see Robbie Oots and think of the many ways that he can be utilized, like you already talked about, Coach Smoot. So
right. I'm excited about that guy, man. I feel like Robbie Oots can be our dark horse in this offense, man, because he's versatile, he's physical, and he's disciplined. I feel like his intensity, his willingness to just be aggressive on every run play. He's a lead block. The guy's looking to blow somebody. He misses blocks sometimes trying to blow people up.
Yeah, and that's just that comes with maturity. Yeah, the heart's there, the intention is there, the intention to cause pain, but he's got to learn how to time it right.
Right, man. I'm telling you, and you guys got to give this guy a chance too. He's coming off of his first year or second year as an offensive coordinator, play calling, and you look at where Notre Dame has been offensively. They don't play SEC schools. Yes, we know Notre Dame doesn't have the strongest of schedules, but years where they had big games, they didn't necessarily lose because of their offense or play calling. Like the Cincinnati game, what it was like 2 years ago.
It was not this past season, but the one before.
Like they didn't lose that because of their offense. That was a lot of players just dropping passes. The quarterback just didn't show up. That was one of those games where the defense gave up 2 late game scores, and it was just Cincinnati's night. So I feel like it's not like Justin. I can't sit here in front. I'm not going to sit here and get this man all this credit and stuff. But I was watching another content creator, and he was like, "It's not the knockout the park hire, but it is one that we can possibly see a guy blossom under a guy like Coach Saban." And we saw as good as Steve Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin was, and Mike Locksley, all those guys, they didn't blossom until they got the reins at Alabama.
Yeah,
they didn't blossom into, and I think the only one that really had set in stone who they were, what type of play caller they was Lane Kiffin when he got here. We
Right.
already knew we knew Lane Kiffin had already started making spins in college football on the offensive side with the tempo and the style of the 5 or less pass plays. You know, I mean 5 yards or less pass game where it was just putting the ball in the air, getting the ball in the athlete's hands fast, causing defenses to move left and right instead of north and south. You know, and you see a lot of these younger coordinators being able to incorporate the old
Mm-hmm.
school sets with that same style of offense, being able to throw variations off of that speed, I guess you could call it run and gun type offense. And you look at the percentage of pass to run plays with Tommy Rees with Notre Dame, um, the last 2 years is like a 60-40 run heavy type offense, and that's what made Alabama great, man. That ball control is what made us look so dominant.
So you're saying we're going to do this thing called managing the clock? Is that what I'm hearing? Because that was something we didn't do. Oh, another thing, Reese also utilizes this play called what's that? Oh, a jet sweep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he did it with guys that we can't take away what Notre Dame has done in their conference and with the level of talent that they're having to, settle with. We know recruiting is not the easiest thing to do at Notre Dame,
With
but
academic uh,
the
requirements.
academic
Yes.
requirements is crazy. And so when you are able to get a 4-star or 5-star there, you highlight that. And if he was able to do that with the little that he had, imagine what he's gonna have. Like, it's like putting a hacker in a room full of the highest bandwidth and mega processors on computers and everything, every chip, every access, and just telling him, "Hey, go to work." You give a young guy like that, a young computer genius, something like that put you on some stuff. You be walking around here not even driving your car. They driving your car for you from somewhere else. I feel like that's what we're gonna be able to see with Tommy Rees, and I feel like Saban needed to have that still higher, and if Pruitt is, that's going to lock in the deal. I feel like that's the master plan right there. You give yourself a chance to see this guy blossom with a plethora of talent, and we're talking about young talent, and even the quarterback, the 2023 commit, or
Justin
is it 20?
saying
Justin saying he's a 24 commit
who was recruited by Reese, and
by Reese.
So was Ty Simpson, folks. Y'all
I'm
remember
telling you,
that.
man. I'm telling you, it's gonna be one of those things where we're going to be able to see some guys blossom under him, and I don't think he's coming in with any motive when it comes to this quarterback battle. I think if anything, he also knows the pressures of being forced into a quarterback role at a major university with some winning history. He knows about being forced into that role early. Go look at his history when he was at Alabama. I mean, at Notre Dame. That guy got forced into that role early, and it took him 2 years to develop into the Tommy Rees that took them to the national championship against us.
First of all, before I get to some things that I feel like need to be discussed, because we are going to look at the negatives as to why there's pushback. Bill
Mm-hmm.
O'Brien, sorry, didn't mean to. Welcome back, Coach.
Oh
Didn't mean to
Jesus!
put you off as long as I did. We got kind of on a roll. Can we hire Pruitt as an analyst if he gets cleared soon? We can hire him regardless right now. There's nothing stopping us from hiring him. It's just we don't know exactly what's going to happen,
What's going to come with it?
and we will not know until late March, early April. And that's the thing that we spoke about earlier. We don't have time to wait for that to happen. So this is what we do. This is possibly a stopgap. And I don't mean that as a disrespect. Like as soon as the verdict is handed over and he's clear that we're going to push Kevin Steele out of the way because he's not able to coach. He's a good coach. He's a solid
Right.
guy, solid defensive mind. This isn't just some guy that we found on the quad and said, "Hey, you busy the next 3 or 4 years? Oh, you did coach a flag football team. All right, come with us." No, this isn't that situation. So
Right.
we feel
And
confident right now.
like I said, man, it's one of those things where you have to be confident because you get to allow guys, like, just say for instance, Pruitt we bring Pruitt on as the analyst, like Bob just said. Um you bring him on as an analyst, you allow him that freedom and that time to kind of just settle in, work with the secondary group, whether it's safeties. I think he should go and work with the safeties. Get those guys mentally there. That's what we've lacked at that level of the defense. Even as good as Battle was that first year, mentally he wasn't there the last 2 years. He made a few
Right.
plays. Him, Hellums, Daniel Wright, like guys like that. Those guys should have been first rounders for sure. Like locked first rounders because of the talent that they had, but you just didn't have the growth there. And
There's no cultivation from our staff. That's
there's
the
no
biggest
development.
thing.
There's no development there.
Just like
And
up front on the defensive front, the front seven. Coach, you and I both know the talent level we had on that defensive line as well as linebackers, but they were never able to really reach their full potential. And as crazy and as nasty as Christian Barmore was, I felt like he too was hindered in his development.
hindered.
If
Yes,
he would have
yes.
had the right guy, say a Bo Davis, hint, imagine what he could have done. He would have made us completely forget about Quentin Williams. He would have
Not, I
given us.
wouldn't necessarily say forget about him, but it would have been one of those things where you have a lineup with your Rayshawn Reeds and your Square and your like it just those guys when it was at one point you had 6 first rounders in the front in the defensive line room, and not just by talent, but we were rotating 7-8 deep with 6 first rounders coming on the field for 90% of the snaps that you're on the field as an offense or as the opposing offense. You got 6-7 first rounders in the trenches coming after your O line that might have a freshman that's just learning the game. You got or a third year player that's playing because the young guy really that's better than him just doesn't get it. So you're suffering on talent and skill. It just was one of those things where the psychological side of the game was already at an advantage for Alabama, and you made hires to where you can start doing that. Because with Tommy Rees, we go back to the offensive coordinator. With Tommy Rees, you don't know what these young guys what type of offensive play caller this guy is. We don't know. We don't know. We know what he's been able to do with what he had at Notre Dame, which was a pretty decent job. They weren't top 10. They weren't finishing top 10 in recruiting, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
They had some pretty good recruiting classes, and I'll get to that. Thundar the Barbarian. Does anyone know why I still moved around so much? If you look at in the grand scheme of things, he didn't really move around a whole lot. He's been with us, and this will be his third time, but he spent 2015 through 2020 with Auburn and has spent one season with Miami. Of course, Miami's a dumpster fire. Nobody could have pulled that team out of the wreckage. Certainly not Kevin Steele by himself, although he did keep Auburn afloat while he was there. And we all know the offensive struggles that they had while he was on the defensive side of the ball. But let's go back to Tommy Rees. I know that we have a lot of pushback. And, of course, I had my doubts too, just, for several reasons. Offensively, in the past 3 years, they were not ranked in the top 50. I think one category they were ranked in the top 50. That was rushing. They were ranked 35th this past season. Not very impressive. Points per game the past 3 years under his reign: 30th, 19th, 42nd. Yes, I understand that he had Ian Book, tremendous job. He did develop a guy that basically was looking at being a free agent at best in the NFL. It turned out to be a third, fourth round quarterback, which is a very good development considering he didn't have a whole lot of athletic ability. But Jake Cohn, Tyler Buckner, Drew Pine, not exactly the most star-studded of lineups, but I know a lot of people are using I don't know if I should call it an excuse, but they're going with that Notre Dame does not have the talent of an Alabama. I agree. They don't have the amount of 5 stars and 4 stars that we have, but they're not the homecoming opponent that people are trying to make them out to be either. They had solid talent, 4 stars, 3 stars. I'm looking at an aspect of, okay, why wasn't Tommy Rees able to develop these guys anymore to go above that? Because I'm looking at North Texas, UTSA, Tulane. They had significantly less than what Notre Dame had, and they were able to put up a lot better production than Notre Dame. So help me, Coach Smoot, to kind of feel good based on what I'm saying. Was Notre Dame just a dumpster fire, or is this something that we really need to be concerned about?
You got to think he was only the offensive coordinator. So in the grand scheme of things, as the offensive coordinator, you do what the head coach desires. You scheme within his desires. So that could play a part in it. You got to think who he was under Brian Kelly. And we saw what Brian Kelly was able to do with LSU's offense, this year, bringing in a competent coordinator. But his first year as a coordinator, he was under Brian Kelly. I'm pretty sure a lot of the reins, he was been handcuffed as his
Yeah,
first
Brian
year.
Kelly caught a lot of that. I agree. I give you
Yeah,
that. And then last year, and I will give Notre Dame somewhat of a pass for this past season because they are playing with their third and fourth string quarterback. That's a
ex-
hard hill to climb.
exactly. And we're still competitive, Justin. And that's what I'm saying. Like I feel like the young mind and the ability to not necessarily develop, because I don't think we're going to see him actually be able to develop somebody until we get a recruit in here that he recruit until or somebody like if we come and somehow or another Jalen Milroe becomes the clear cut number one under Tommy Rees and goes out there and gives us a Jalen Hurts slash Tua type season, first year starting type season, we can be talking about Tommy Rees being the next like Garrett Riley type dude, you know what I'm saying? Or I mean, it's just Lincoln Riley. This guy, he has that potential right now because of just the position he's in under Nick Saban. And that's the thing I rely on is the fact that he's under Nick Saban. So you give him a grand scheme of things and you tell him to, go to work within these parameters and we'll just build from here. Because like you said, Saban said in the interview last year, we don't have a set scheme or offense that we run. We have a structure and we continue to add and take away as we develop these guys and prepare for different opponents. We don't game plan based off of what our scheme is. He says they game plan based off of what the development in the scheme is. So if guys are progressing in the scheme, if you think about it, that makes sense because Bill O'Brien's scheme that he was trying to implement, guys weren't progressing in it. So that's why we didn't get to see
Yeah,
extravagant play calling and
right.
everything with the guys that we were being presented with after J-Mo and Mechie left, in the wide receiver room. So we were very limited as far as guys being progressively being developed and progressing in that scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Now you bring in a guy like Tommy Rees. How can he relate to these younger guys, being that he's a younger mind? How can he relate to these guys and get them to buy into the scheme within the grand scheme of things, within the parameters of that Saban has set? Can he get them to buy into it, and how quickly can they develop in it and become comfortable in it so that when it's time to make adjustments on the fly, we don't look like a run team or a pass team. We look like a team that's able to adjust and be efficient and dominant in either level. I mean, whichever route we decide to take.
Mm-hmm. Jim McHugh makes a great point. These coordinators are get it right or get off the field. Accountability for poor play at last. And that's one of the
Right.
biggest things I'm looking at too, man, is the accountability. It's not going to be what we've known in the past where we just let people do what they want and get in their feelings and care more about being Instagram models than they are producers on the field. But back to Tommy Rees, I'm not going to continue to slam him. I'm going to bring up good as well. And one thing that Alabama fans should be excited about, as opposed to Bill O'Brien, he doesn't run a predictable offense. No two series are the same. It's
None.
always evolving. It's always changing. The patterns are hard to detect. Guys, if anything, that's something to be excited about right there. And at the goal line, we're going to use Roydell. We're going to use
Right.
Jace.
Right.
And on 4th and inches, we're not going to line up in shotgun.
And that's what I was just about to say. You get a guy like Jalen Milroe, who is used to taking snaps from under center, and you need that 4th and inches. We in a tight conference game. You want that 4th and inches in the third quarter to maintain momentum going into the fourth. Like things that Bama used to do during our time of dominance on both sides of the ball control. You were able to gamble because you knew the defense was going to come out aggressive, no matter where the ball was spotted, no matter if we were in plus territory, we was in the red zone. we gambled on fourth down a lot more when we had dominant defense. 2016, man, I remember so many fourth down conversions, man, where it was just easy because of the trenches being intact. The
Oh yeah.
O line was just so aggressive, man. They had the sense of, hey, we know we're gonna come out. The offense knew they was gonna come out and run. If we ran 8 plays, the first 6 plays was gonna be run plays. Everybody knew it. Everybody that played Alabama knew it. If we came out and passed on the first place because you run a horrible set on your defense, and we know we could beat you over top. But most of the time, Bama coming out, we trying to establish the run game. And I feel like Tommy Rees falls in line with that. People say it's because they had injuries last year. I think he was able to scheme and still produce a productive run game. You had 2 guys, and he was able to implement the quarterback run. Hey, Blake Sims, Jake Cokers, Jalen Hurts. Hey, when we was able to get the quarterback run initiated, when there was a threat, our offense were a lot more efficient. When we was able to rely on a 2-back system, our offense was a lot more efficient. You had receivers being able to expose coverages because we had to make the defense focus on run support. So I'm not convinced with the Tommy Rees hire, but I like it. I'm sitting here. I have some optimism, but I'm leaning more to and it's warranted because we just don't know.
It is.
We just don't know.
Shout out to Jamie Wilhelm, $4.99 in the super chat. Greatly appreciate it.
Roll Tide, baby.
And I'll touch on this last point in regard to Tommy Rees. Coach, you and I have been debating over the past several weeks about getting a coordinator in that's going to allow Jalen Milroe to have a fair shot at taking that number 1 spot. You and I both feel like we need a guy that's going to be able to work with him and be competent and developing him according to what his abilities are. That's a concern with me with a Tommy Rees. Can he develop a Jalen Milroe? Is this going to be a true competition between him and Todd Simpson, or does he lean towards what he's comfortable with? And what I mean by that is the guys he recruited, Ty Simpson, Julian Sayin. Do you feel comfortable in Tommy Rees giving Jalen Milroe the fair shot?
I think with a guy like Tommy Rees, you don't come in under a guy like Coach Saban with favoritism on your mind. You know what I'm saying? You don't come in with like your own set mindset of personnel. You know that at any point in time at Alabama, as you played against us, you watched us continuously. You grew up in the era and played in the era of us just being able to produce guys. So you see us have that luxury of being able to produce guys. You just go out and present it to guys present opportunities for them to work. And that's what you go off of. And like I said, I honestly believe a guy like Tommy Rees, if you could take a guy like Ian Book and make him effective, not great, but effective, get his name, we really had Ian Book as a Heisman contender, guys. I don't think y'all understand that. We had Ian Book as a Heisman contender. And it's because of I believe it's mostly because of the school he was playing at more than his actual skill, because
that does say
in prime time,
yeah.
I mean, so you take a guy like Jalen Milroe and you're able to put him in an offense where we're relying on the run game. You're not putting that much pressure on him to be an efficient passer. And in games where he does have to step back and pass, you let him know that, hey, it's okay to use your legs to go off platform and throw from a comfortable spot, which is being off platform for an athletic quarterback. Everybody knows that. Most of your successful athletic quarterbacks have success throwing off platform, throwing on the move, throwing on the run. Throwing off play action, reactive pass game where you're allowing 1 or 2 option routes with the rollout scheme. I feel like Tommy Rees has a good understanding of that because of the personnel that he was forced to use at Notre Dame. And if you're able to be effective with that, with having a 3 tight end set on the field, I mean, this could be something that I miss those days where you had the tight trips sets with the tight end being on the line, your slot and your Z receiver tight, and they're on the hash, and you have your X receiver split out ISO. with your one back, you know, and those play action plays where you have the flood concept on your right from on the strong side, and you're dragging that X from the left all the way across the field to the right, of vice versa. I miss those type of plays because they had to respect the run game where you forced the weak side or the strong side safety to step down because of the concept that you're running on the strong side. And now you have the one-on-one. You got the corner and the backside safety have to make a decision. Am I following him as the corner and passing him off, or am I passing him off to the safety that's supposed to be playing over top? Safety eyes is in the backfield because he don't see nothing but one-on-one on the outside. So he's assuming that's what he got on the outside. You got to make defenses think. Tommy Rees has the potential to be that guy. So I'm excited. I'm not excited about it. I'm very optimistic about it, and I feel positive about it.
Right. And yeah, I'm going to follow suit. I'm not overly excited. And the fact is, there's just not a good sample size for us to go on until, what was it, Friday? We didn't know who he was. And let's be honest, had he been announced as the offensive coordinator anywhere else, it wouldn't have been front page news. It's front page news because he's coming to Alabama.
Right.
So I look at this. I asked you the question about Kevin Steele. Is it a base hit or a home run? Same thing here. For me, it's a base hit. It's not a home run. It's to be determined, not trying to put the guy down. I'm just very skeptical because I do like the possibilities. I do like the fact that we can go back to smash mouth bully ball. That's something that Alabama, that's what our identity has been and our entire existence, and definitely magnified under Coach Saban. I just I have a lot of questions, Coach, and
Right.
and I'm nervous about it, and I don't
It's
want
warranted,
to
man.
have a guy that we are taking a project because of potential. We already did that with Pete Golding. And at this point in Alabama's journey, Coach Saban's journey, who has a lot of more years behind him than he does ahead of him, we can't afford a mistake.
But you got to also remember. Let's think about personnel. On that offensive side, man, you got guys like Holman Wiggins. You got what's the running backs coach? Gillespie.
Robert Gillespie, I
You
like him.
got the offensive line coach in oh man, what's my guy name? Doggone it, I
The
forget
offensive
his
line
name.
coach, that's Eric Wolford, sir.
And I mean, you got a staff where you have a great mixture of old school values, but adapting new concepts. And in the trenches, I don't think there's new concepts to adapt in the trenches. I think what's being effective, why Georgia offense looks effective and is dominated, because they are so aggressive in the trenches. They have guys
Yeah.
in the front five. Their front five guys they want to knock people out in the trenches. They want to clear them out and get downfield to the smaller guys and get those pancakes up. Get those extra downfield blocks. That's what Georgia did great. That's what, man, you look, even when Clemson's run game is clicking, they got guys downfield, man. Kentucky, guys downfield blocking. I mean, every successful offense that you see that's thriving right now has a nasty front five, and you get a guy like Tommy Rees, that's surrounded by that type of staff and that type of experience. He's going to have to rely on those guys being able to develop and do what they do best without handcuffing them. He's going to have to take that input. And I think Saban sees that when you talk about mixing up a staff. We talked about how much of a bad hire Todd Grantham and Dan Mullen and guys like that would have been a toxic for the staff. We were so desperate. We were talking about Butch Jones, but Butch Jones is not a guy everybody wants to work with. You know,
Mm-mm.
as far as philosophy and things of that nature, yes, he has experience, but um, but you think about guys like Derek Mason, that we want to keep here, and even Strong, we want to keep here. People love when you hear people talk about those coaches; they want to work with those guys. Um, I feel like you get that with Tommy Rees and Wiggins and Gillespie and Wolford and the new tight ends coach. I mean, we have something brewing on that offensive side as far as the staff. And I don't think we need to invest too much thought into it, even in the spring game. I think we're going to see. We don't even get to see a glimpse of it
No,
in the spring
no.
game. Yeah, we
We
don't even see a glimpse of it. We're going to see basic, but first game of the year, it's gonna tell us a lot. It's going to tell us a lot.
Well, I don't know so much of the first game. I don't think we're going to get a true picture of what it can be until about mid-season, fifth or sixth game,
Yeah,
when the offenses settle in and they're more comfortable with the concepts and the schemes.
right,
So, folks, don't jump ship and be ready to fire either coordinator into the sun, or more so Tommy Rees. I think that we're okay with Kevin Steele, but don't be ready to fire Tommy Rees into the sun. Like Coach said, there's going to be growing pains. Expect
right.
it. Uh, do we have talent there? Absolutely. It's just going to take a while for everything to kind of start flowing at the rate that we want to see it. And hey, if it takes off immediately, then
E-
may God have mercy on the souls of the defenses that we're going to be lining up against. And
Right,
what better time than the second game against Texas?
right. And that's what and we get to have them at home. That's a perfect opportunity for Tommy Rees. Like this, if Saban was to make the hire like this would be the season because a lot of your big games, our schedule is a little bit softer this year. I will say that
We,
everybody's giving
we need
Georgia
it.
crap about their schedule. Hey, we can't determine how people recruit and what they develop, at the end of the day. But when you look at it, I'm glad we need it. This is a transitional year for us. You got two new coordinators, not necessarily new as far well, Kevin Steele, when you say new, this isn't his first time,
He's
but
going to
they're
be
here
new
at
to these
Alabama.
players, and it takes
Yeah,
time for those
it
guys
takes
to
time to
adjust to his way of
familiarize.
doing things. Yeah.
You got guys on both. You got new guys on both staffs. You got new guys in key positions on both staffs. Like the inside linebacker position is going to be very important to develop and to get on the same page quickly because I feel like under still this D line and Freddie Roach, we're going to see if Freddie Roach is the problem this year with the D line being under Kevin Steele because he's not going to handcuff him with stunts and defensive line pressures and the gap scheme. Kevin Steele is a very efficient coordinator when you're talking about using gap scheme because you look at Auburn's front over the past 4 or 5 years under him. Come on, man. We got something special on that defensive side. It's just about seeing what this offensive side gonna do. And I think Saban made some calculated hires right now. And if Pruitt is on staff before the season starts, I don't care what in whatever capacity. If he's able to interact with game planning and player development, it's a solid move. It's a solid
Yeah.
move.
Trust me, Jerry Pruitt's imprint will be on that defense. Make no mistake about that. And Coach, I do agree with you. I think that we're actually going to be seeing a new side of Freddie Roach. I think that Kevin Steele is going to allow Freddie Roach to actually do his thing.
Yeah.
He's not going to be handcuffed like he was against Pete Golding. So we may say something different. Quick topic before we start to close up shop. We talked about it a little bit earlier in our chat between you and I. Do you feel like Freddie Roach is going to stay here, or will he go with his buddy D'Amico to the Houston Texans?
Honestly, man, Freddie Roach, do you I would have to get a better gauge on what type of pressure he's facing from Coach Saban and just being on the staff at Alabama and the type of talent we've been able to produce at the defensive line position before he was the position coach. Um does he leave Alabama and go to the NFL for the same position? I don't
He would be a defensive coordinator, I would assume.
you
And
you but that's the thing, like you think D'Amico Ryans is ready to bank on bringing in Freddie Roach as a defensive coordinator in the NFL, and he hasn't even
I
done it
think he
at a high
trusts his.
level in college.
I think he trusts his guy. He played side by side with him at Alabama. He
And
knows
I
what
feel
D'Amico
you, man.
wants, and he doesn't have to teach him anything. They're in each other's head. They're yin and yang. And to answer your question, I don't feel like Freddie Roach is under any pressure from Saban as you produce now or you're out. I think that
Right.
he's being given a clean slate, to be honest with you. And also, too, and you got to understand that Freddie Roach is also one of the best recruiters in the country.
Exactly. And I think that's where I believe he would stay at Bama. I think the if Freddie Rose doesn't understand anything, he understands changing young men's lives. And he's been presenting that opportunity to a lot of young men, especially coming into that defensive line room. They know if you can make it through 2 or 3 years at Bama in that defensive line room and get on that field, you got a good chance of getting drafted. It might not be
Yeah.
first round every time, but you're going to have a career post Alabama because you're going to get to be on film in some type of postseason game. You're going to be you're going to get an opportunity to be on film, LSU game every year, Iron Bowl game every year.
Hmm.
Every other year when we play Georgia, every 2 years.
Hmm.
Or was it every 4 years now? Whatever the split
I
is.
forgot what the rotation is.
Every other year when we play Florida, we're going to see because of the history behind, the rivalries. So defensive lineman is always about the trenches in these games. The SEC is all about the run game and being the most physical and dominant. Where can you establish your dominance at and show how physical you are is in the trenches because that's where everything starts. So a guy like Freddie Roach, he sees where he could continue to give young men opportunities to be exposed in that light. I think he stays for that reason, being that he's not under any pressure from Saban. But if there's like a
Mm-mm.
pressure there, I think he takes the opportunity and goes to the NFL. And honestly, if he does, also I believe Saban pushes that that idea. If that opportunity arises, I believe Saban encourages him to take the opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, because Saban, we know he's played, he's been able to develop more as a coach under Coach Saban. So I feel like it'll be like when Coach Saban betted for Kirby Smart to go to Georgia, you know, and even when Pruitt left, he vetted for Pruitt,
Yeah.
Sarkisian and Kiffin, he vetted for those guys. Brian Dayball, Mike Loxley, he vetted for all these guys that have left. Now he hasn't vetted for everyone that's left.
Hmm.
So, if Coach Saban, if he goes, I feel like that's one of them things where Coach Saban is like, okay, man, you should try. You should go
Yeah.
and expand yourself that way.
And I'm thinking that, like I said, if he does leave, it's not going to be because he's forced out or he has that pressure. I think it's going to be more so he's achieving perhaps a lifelong dream of being in the NFL, coaching at the highest level. I look at that. Will, quick question answer. Coach, I'm going to ask you this question. If he does depart for the NFL, who is your immediate replacement? And I'll give a dark horse. You give best case, and I'll give the audience a dark horse, and then we'll start to wrap it up.
Bo Davis, man, that's not best case. That's not realistic. Honestly, I don't think so. But
Could be
I don't know, man. I don't know why the trigger wasn't pulled initially. To get Bo Davis on
NCAA.
staff, and oh man, that
Greg
bothers me.
Sankey, the combined forces of them.
Yeah, but honestly, I don't know, bro. I don't know. I don't know who would come to Bama. Um, because it's just so many people. I believe we will be able to go and pick from anybody's staff and pull, especially like schools like Iowa. You go and get their D-line coach. Or you can go to the league and get somebody that's, assistant D-line coach. Like I just feel like being an Alabama defensive lineman position coach is just as good as being a defensive coordinator at um Vanderbilt or like those schools that's struggling, that's they only get recognition because you're literally the coordinator for the D1 university. So I don't have any specific names, man. I feel like it would be, and it might open the door for an opportunity for a guy like Sean Dean Hamilton to come and coach D line, even though he played linebacker. We know the defensive side of the ball.
Ding,
You bring a
ding,
guy like,
ding.
you know what I'm saying, like, you know,
I'm going to give you two of them. One, when you hear the name, people are going to be like, okay, yeah. And that's Courtney Upshaw, former,
mm,
yes, two-time national champion, and does have coaching experience with UAB. Bring him back into the fold. He knows what it takes to win a title. He can
dang.
get guys fired up and be aggressive. Another guy people might not be thinking about so much, Alabama ties, Rudy Griffin, one of the hardest working players in Alabama history, a guy that held the athletic department hostage So they look at his videos to gain a spot as a walk-on at Alabama. Went
Right.
from a walk-on who honestly didn't think he was going to last. Matter of fact, he left because he didn't have the money to finish. And Coach Shula saw enough in him that he called over the Christmas break and said, "You're getting a scholarship," which has never been
Right.
done before. He ended up being a 2-year starter, was that dude. And he does have college coaching experience. He's coached at predominant high schools in terms of football. He knows how to motivate young men. He has guys that end up being beasts that he can recruit.
Right.
He's a very uplifting guy. I think that he would be somebody worth considering in the future. But we are at the end of our show. Before we head on out, guys, I'm going to let Coach Smook tell all of you what he's got coming up next, how you can find him on all social media. And if you have not yet subscribed to his YouTube channel, shame on you, because if you've been in our chat this entire time and have not yet done so, shame, shame, shame. And if you don't know where it is by now, well, now is your opportunity to figure it out. Coach Smook, talk to him.
Man, appreciate you again, Justin, and everybody in the chat. Roll Tide. Don't forget to hit the like button on the screen. We're sitting at what, 82 likes, man. Let's go ahead and get it over 100. We've had more than 100 viewers in here tonight, which is big, man. Y'all have made this show consistently every time we go live for the post game show with myself and Justin. You guys have made these shows bangers, so I appreciate y'all for that. But you can find me on YouTube at Coach Smook. I've been doing my gaming streaming over there, 2 times a week. I've also done a couple reaction videos the past couple weeks. It's about to get very active now, guys. The content is about to be produced. We got a lot of college football news we're going to be reacting to. Just get used to seeing my face just reacting to things, man, and sharing my opinion. Because a lot of people like to hear my controversial opinions. They like to hear it. So that's what we're going to start pushing. And I appreciate all the feedback I get from you guys. And also, you can check my TikTok out at Coach Smook. Also, Twitter. Been getting active on Twitter. Thanks to my bro, Justin. I wasn't a big Twitter guy, but I see how active it gets when you talking about college football, college basketball. And speaking of college basketball, Justin, I know this ain't about me, but Alabama, man, we took that hard loss to
Oklahoma, 30
Oklahoma
points.
last week, and we turn around. You see the guys' intensity get back, and that's something that I'm happy to see about Alabama basketball and Nate Oates and those guys going crazy right now. So yeah, we're gonna be reacting to more of those shorts. Shout out to my guy Wills, who's on YouTube. If you haven't already, go check him out. You want to see fast replay cuts of any Alabama athletics, big games and stuff, go check out his YouTube channel. He's been supporting, showing love, and just giving much love to Alabama athletics in general. Anything you ever want to watch an old game or something, go check that out. But definitely always showing love to the Bama Standard, man. Again, Justin, y'all can always find me here every Sunday we go live unless something crazy happen, man. I'm telling y'all, man. Hey, this is going to be a crazy show. Once spring ball kicks off, you guys do not want to miss out on any content that's going to be coming on this show. I'm telling you guys.
Hey, there is 203 of you in the chat right now, the live chat. I expect there to be at least 203 likes, and I expect Coach Smook to get at least 203 more subscribers on his channel. That's kind of the fair thing that we ask of everybody. Next week, we will not be here because of the Super Bowl. I'm not going to even try to compete against that. We'll be in front of our TVs cheering on Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, Landon Dickerson, and Josh Jobe.
Yes, sir.
And we'll be back the following week to talk about it. Program notes. Y'all stay with us before we close. I want y'all to see what all is going on. First of all, thank you, live chat, and everybody who has watched tonight. We were very appreciated. Without you, this just doesn't happen. Tuesday night on Touchdown Alabama Magazine's YouTube channel, the Bama Standard, our main show, our flagship show, will return at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. And we are going to have a good one for you. We're going to be reacting to the coordinator hires, and we'll have a little bit of help. Former Alabama linebacker Christian Miller will be with us to talk about playing for Kevin Steele and Jeremy Pruitt and what to possibly expect with these new hires. and we're going to touch on his career a little bit. And oh yeah, his dad's going to be with him too, and they're going to be promoting a new podcast that they have just launched, which I expect all of our Bama fans to go show support. And then Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central, right here on this channel, the final whistle with Matt Cadell, Chris James, and Dan James. We'll be back to talk about what else, the coordinator hires, Bama basketball, and now previewing the Super Bowl. And then Wednesday night, Bo Scarborough show will return at 7:30 p.m. Central. We missed last week, but we are back on track this week. We're going to be giving the untold story of Trent Richardson. Trent Richardson is going to open up and share things that you have not heard before. Now, I realize that there's a lot of misinformation as to what has happened with him throughout the years being passed around. Well, he's going to clear all that up, and he's going to tell it in a way that's going to inspire people. So if you have any young athletes in your family, encourage them to watch and to listen to what he has to tell you. But yeah, that's what we got coming up. Everybody, y'all rock. We greatly appreciate everything you do each week. Thank you, Coach Smook.
Thank you, man. And I just want to say one thing before you get off, man. Everybody that supports any content creators, I want y'all to understand, probably like 75, 80% of your content creation community doesn't make crazy amount of money doing what they do. They doing it because they actually like creating content. That's what they want to do. And when it comes to sports talk, especially when you talk about a program like Alabama, when you got guys like Justin and the TDA guys and it's some of the other names I don't want to mention. I'm not sure how things work, but you got a lot of different sports outlets that really put their all into producing quality content. So guys, when you drop those likes and you're sharing and you're putting, you're going and subscribing to these channels. Like, I know for a fact how Justin feels because I'm a content creator in a gaming community where it's really aggressive. And it's really appreciated, though, when you guys show your support in the smallest ways. It's not about a dollar amount. The fact that you sit here and you give an opinion on my thoughts and opinions, that you enjoy listening to, what me and Justin go back and forth about when they talk about just football, a team that we are dedicated to and cheer for. And just Alabama as a university, Alabama as a state, Alabama as a whole, as a community. I'm very appreciative. So, continue to show love and support, guys. Just know we appreciate it. We don't do this just for we talk about stuff throughout the week, making sure that we're going to have something interesting to talk about every Sunday. And Justin doesn't just do this one show. He does multiple shows. So I commend you, bro. Just keep up the good work. And man, I feel like we're going to take off with this thing, man. We're going to be producing some big stuff. And it's all because of the fans, you guys. You guys keep showing up, commenting, showing love, giving your opinions, and we appreciate it. So roll tide. And yeah, man, it's your boy Coach Smook, man. I'm happy.
Hey, and we're out. Roll tide, everybody. Have a great night.